I did something incredibly stupid as I was making the tea, though.
Sounds about right.
What do you sounds about right? How rude! Dare you? I went to I got the milk out of the fridge, and then I put it into the tea, and then I picked up the kettle, and I put the kettle back in the fridge when I was done with it, rather than the milk.
Holy shit, you are sick.
That's where my brain fog's at right now with the COVID.
You really are sick. Tony, g'day.
Mark, kia ora. We're not in my house.
We're not at your house. I'm not allowed at your house.
I know we're like star-crossed lovers that just can't reunite.
It's a sad state of affairs, mate. How's your COVID going?
Oh, mate, I've gone from feeling like absolute dog's balls just to feeling like one drooping dog nut. So like it's still dog's balls, but not quite as bad as it was.
Okay, so you're getting there.
Yeah.
You're pretty late to the COVID party, man.
Yeah, really late to it. I wanted to do it before, like when it was cool. I don't like to do things, I like to wait till it's a little bit ironic. So,
you're proper hipster, huh?
Yeah, proper hipster.
Nice. But despite your COVID, did you watch some rugby at the weekend?
Mate, rugby, I did watch a bit of the oval ball codes, both rugby union and rugby league. I haven't been able to do much else. Okay. But oh my god, I feel like a lot has happened. This is our first one in 2 weeks. Last week I was sick, not with COVID. I had a flu.
That's
and my partner had COVID, and now but a lot's happened. The Queen passed away since we last spoke.
That's right.
My gosh, it was
the
crazy.
World's turning itself on its head. So
yeah, it is. It's weird. It's a sad thing the Queen passed away, but my most famous person I've ever met in my life just got a promotion, though.
Who's that?
Believe it or not, I have met old Chucky boy, King Charles.
Okay. I should have seen that coming. Right. When did you meet Charles?
I met him in 2002 at a small rural boys' school called Brymore. And he made a request to meet the gap students because I was on a gap year. Okay. His boys, William and Harry, were doing gaps at the time, and we had a chatted for about 5 minutes. Yeah, he was a nice guy.
Okay, I can honestly say I've never met any of the royal family.
It's a rare one, isn't it? It is. Who's the most famous person you've met, Mark?
Have I even met anybody remotely famous? I mean, I talked about meeting Mark Ellis. That's a bit sad. When I cleaned his car,
the old rubber dub car wash.
Have you seen? Have you seen Lord of the Rings?
I have seen Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
Do you remember there was a guy at Bilbo Baggins' party, and his surname was Proudfoot, and he gave Bilbo Baggins a bit of shit? That guy came into the service station I used to work at.
You're really clutching. So basically, an extra from Lord of the Rings came into your service.
He had a line, okay? He had a line. He wasn't just an extra. He had a line. But he must have been pretty proud of that because he stayed in the service station for about 10 minutes talking about like the filming and how Peter Jackson was awesome. Wow. Yeah.
Wow. What was his line? Because I am a big sort of Lord of the Rings fan. The Proudfoots. They yell Proudfoots.
When Bilbo was rattling off all the welcoming to all the different hobbits, like Blubberbers and Bagginses and whoever, and he says and Proudfoots, and the guy corrects him and goes Proud Feet. I think that's his line. That guy.
He's an extra. That's an extra,
bro.
I
think he's also been looking kind of grumpy when Gandalf sets off some fireworks.
Yeah, I'd say he's a what they call a featured extra. So there you go, a featured. I think Mark Ellis still takes the cake on that. Right. I was actually far more nervous meeting, Savage from the Decepticons and other various New Zealand rap acts than meeting Prince Charles. I remember I met Savage in a queue for the movies, and I fully was like, oh. Savage.
Really?
Yeah. Well, the amazing thing about Prince Charles is King Charles now, incredibly amazing at making you feel comfortable. Like
I guess he's had a lot of practice at small talk, hasn't he?
He was. I thought he was going to be a bit of a dick, but
right.
He was actually really lovely. Really lovely. And I'm not a royalist at all.
Right. Okay.
Here we go. How about that?
We're all family like rugby.
Yeah, William and Harry are big rugby men, aren't they?
What do you think they would have made of Argentina against South Africa? I want to start with that one because I feel like we're going to go down a bit of a rabbit hole with the other one. So Argentina, South Africa, obviously it's over in Argentina. It's about as dominant a first half as you'll see from the Springboks. But hey, there's a big old comeback from the Pumas. Just when you think they're going to get it done, the Boks snatch back that bonus point to keep the Rugby Championship alive.
It was all a bit deflating to watch from an Argentinian perspective. I felt it was pretty frustrating. Like the amount of times they created like an overlap out wide or had a bit of space, but just a loose pass or just clean drop ball. And it was pretty evident within, you think they would have given that a lot of attention since the All Black game where it was really, really prevalent. And especially in that second test, just so much drop ball. And like the conditions were far better than they were. Was it Christchurch when they dropped all that ball?
That's right.
Hamilton. So yeah, just like they seem like they're doing some really good things up front. They're putting men into space. They're doing a lot of really interesting things, but just catch and pass, just those fundamentals. Like great All Black teams of the past. I remember Sonny Bill Williams came across from league and he said, what do you think of the All Black training? And he was like, all we do is just catch and pass. Like he said, it's been really good, but he said, I didn't even know how to, upon reflection, he was like, I don't think I really knew how to pass the ball before I started training with the All Blacks. Like just catch, pass, and just drilling it again. So when in those moments where it's on, it just happens because you've done it thousands of times. Yeah, 100%. But no, it was a pretty good game to watch. It was really interesting. It was great to watch the Argentinians come back into it, and the crowd got so excited, and then just all the
the crowd got like
feverish,
just like so riled up, and like there was a wave of emotion. Like that's when it absolutely just got deflating for them, eh?
Yeah. It was pretty sad. It was, but what I was like, it reminded me a lot of when I lost my virginity, if I'm being completely honest. A lot of excitement, all the build up, huge amount of anticipation, and then just over in a flash. And, the air was let out of the tires very, very quickly. And everyone walks away pretty disappointed, unless you're a South African. Although there was no
big South African man storming over some grass, then I take it.
No. There were no sort of turnovers at the breakdown.
Your man, Malcolm Marx, is putting his hand up as potentially the best hooker in the world. There's a few good ones. I mean, the French, the Irish have got some good player guys in that position. Tokia, who's doing all right for the All Blacks, but Malcolm Marx, he's in a rich vein of form.
It's hard to, when he's on form, he's been the most valuable player on the field a number of times, and he played a whole 80 minutes, didn't he, in the weekend? Yeah. Have they even? Because I know they've lost their man Dweber. Well, haven't lost him. They've decided not to select him anymore. And Manumbi, I always get his name wrong, is out of action with injury. Did they have a second choice hooker on the bench?
They had Dion Ferry, who used to be a hooker back when he played Super Rugby. We're talking pre-2018-17. But then he kind of became a loose forward over the course of his career. Like he's not played regular hooker since, I think, 2017. So he was there as the backup hooker, but he came on and just packed down in the loose.
So in case of injury, basically,
yeah, he can do it in a pinch, but that's not been his regular position for a long time. And I mean, he's been playing for his club in South Africa really well as a loosey. Like he's getting turnovers like crazy. So
yeah, no, but he's a freak, man. He's a freak. Like I know we talk a lot about Lakan Yuam being the best player in the world right now. Malcolm Marx is putting himself into that conversation. Two South Africans, number 1 and 2 for me right now. Just an absolute freak out there. And just have you ever seen a more imposing physical specimen? He's like just an absolute brick shithouse, really, isn't he? He's a
big unit.
Yeah,
he's a big unit. Uncompromising, eh?
And you can call a male in this case a big unit. Do we have
I got some support for calling the women the big units as well, so I still think I'm safe to go with big unit.
Big unit, yeah, fair enough.
I just realized I'm not plugged in on the Ethernet cable. Maybe I'll just do that just in case.
Okay, man.
I'm on Wi-Fi.
Just gonna take a short break.
Wi-Fi is pretty notoriously unreliable.
Seems to be doing all right. I don't think I actually have a Ethernet cable.
Is your computer on Wi-Fi? Oh, brave man.
I'm on the Whiffly. So there's a moment of high drama here. I have just smashed my tea into my microphone, taking out my microphone completely. Mark is totally unaware. Let's see how this high drama moment's going to play out.
Argentinian bench, though, in terms of like what we're used to seeing from the South Africans, it's that kind of big impact from their bench, but this time, whoa. You're on mute. You broke the microphone.
I smacked the tea into it. And
oh shit, you're on a different microphone now.
Then I'll plug it back in.
Now you're on the right microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Whew. That was some intense stuff. Thanks for hanging in there with us. Okay, yeah. Sorry about that. I smacked my tea right into the microphone. So we've swapped the beers for teas today. We're not shooting this at night. It's actually during the day.
Yeah, because you've got COVID.
Because I've got COVID. Yeah, that's right. What's on your mug? Let's compare mugs. Oh, the All Blacks. I've got
Space
that's my cat. That's my cat.
Nice.
I made that little image there.
You made that?
Yeah,
my wife got this for me for like Father's Day or something a few years ago.
Rugby makes me happy. How about that? You really commit to the rugby love a bit, don't you?
Bro,
You really
what can I say? My wife, she knows how to keep me happy.
All right. Are we getting into the boudoir? Is that what we're talking about?
Rugby.
Okay, sorry. I thought we were Mark and Tony's sex chat. That's what this is going to turn into.
Argentina, their bench had some pretty good impact, man. It was almost like they had their own version of the bomb squad. These guys come on and I thought started bossing the game around. I mean, they still had to deal with what was a pretty suffocating Springbok defense, but they certainly went from being nowhere in the first half to, showing the Springboks that they're not just going to roll over.
Was it 22? They got it back to 22-20 or something like that?
Yeah.
What went wrong in those last 10 minutes, basically? Was it like last 10 to 12 minutes when it 36-20? Was that the end score?
Yeah. The Springboks just started playing. They got some ball. They got some go forward, and they were playing with some real freedom at the end. Like Malcolm Marx, your man, out in the midfield and, playing a wee 1-2 with his winger and stuff. It was a thing of beauty, wasn't it?
It's going to be interesting to see what that means for next week, because for the Boks to be in any sort of contention for the Rugby Championship, they're going to, number one, really be chasing that bonus point. Number two, potentially having to go for a really, really big points differential, which would actually be sort of counterintuitive to their normal, their normal style of play, which is just squeezing the crap out of teams. They might have to put that in the cupboard for a little bit and just throw it about, see what happens.
It's going to be interesting as well because they're having a bit of a crisis at 10 because Pollard's out kind of long term. Willemse got an HIA, so he's going to be unavailable. And then our man out in Yankees has been.
Now this is the time for Tony and Mark's sex chat.
It's like a game of Cluedo, out in Yankees in the hotel room with the dietitian.
With the 12-inch black dildo. That's
basically.
I feel sorry for him. Look, we make jokes and all that sort of stuff, but the guy's got 2 kids at home and he's got a wife and all that sort of jazz. And like, cheating on your wife and all that sort of thing it's a terrible thing to do. And like, I'm sure it's dramatic enough. I've been through a divorce. No one involved nobody cheated on anyone else, but it was hard enough.
Yeah.
And there wasn't like international scrutiny on what was actually going on. So I really, really feel for his wife and his kids and all those sorts of things. The turmoil that they must be going through emotionally is that I can't really even imagine. Just as someone who's been through a divorce and kind of knows the stress that is involved with that, but then to pile all that other crap on top of it, it's just really nasty stuff. Really, really.
I mean, he's far from the first rugby player to make an off field mistake.
No,
I mean, the All Blacks have got guys with domestic violence. They got Aaron Smith was doing similar stuff. I mean, he wasn't married, but he was having a wee liaison in the bathrooms. I mean, we talked about James Slipper, and I read something like apparently Bongi and Bonambi's got like child support stuff. I mean, I don't really care about that kind of stuff too much, but like I said, Elton's not the first guy to,
no, he's not.
Life.
It's intensely damaging emotionally and mentally for these people, and it's hard to, like, we just read about it in the papers and make some jokes and all that sort of stuff about it, but I don't know. I somehow feel for them in some respects. Like, people make mistakes and they do dumb things and all that sort of stuff, but just to have it all play out publicly, like for it not to play out publicly, it would be awful and horrible. But it just must be a level of I don't know. I can't imagine what that must feel like. It must be absolutely horrible.
But I mean, does that mean his Springboks career is done? Could they have him back? I mean, he's barely in the team on like form anyway. He's not got the form, but he's 32. Is this like the final nail in the Elton coffin? Because he's kind of just been there as the backup for a long time.
He hasn't been playing well. He hasn't been playing well.
He's not been playing much at all. I think he was injured for ages, came into the Springboks, looked rusty, which was to be expected because he hadn't played any games.
Yeah. He looks very rusty. I can't really think of him doing anything this year well. Any plays or any kicks where you're like, oh, that was good, Elton. But no, I think this could potentially be it, or it could be one of those incredible Rocky-like performances that we're in that point of the movie where everything's fallen apart, the whole world's against him, and then we fast forward to the miracle ending where he's getting a kick to win the World Cup in 2023 in France.
You never know.
Like, sport's interesting, isn't it? Like, the massive highs, massive lows, and we might just be in the low period before he builds back up, or he might just they could be calling it time, and he maybe just see out the rest of his career in Japan or something like that. Just make a bit of yen.
Well, I mean, just you mentioned that. Like, I mean, here in New Zealand, the story of Stephen Donald's a pretty famous one. He goes from the backup guy to Dan Carter, which is already pretty big shoes to fill, and then mucks up in Bledisloe Test in Hong Kong. Basically, is blamed solely for the loss. Becomes public enemy number one. Talkback radio, which was probably bigger than it was now, like kind of like social media is now, just hounding him. He's awful, and then he drops to our fourth choice guy, and like you say, man, kick to win the World Cup. So it can happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a funny old thing, sport sometimes, and that's what we love about it. But then it's also cruel. There are times where people deserve to get amazing outcomes and deserve to get that moment of glory, but just never get it. So it's just one of those things. But also the other thing that's been happening with the South Africans, I'm not sure if you've heard about this, but the allegations of drug use, recreational drug use.
Yeah, I did see. I didn't actually read the whole article. I saw the headline, and then I saw there was another headline from the Springboks camp basically denying it. So
a little bit of cocaine Kate apparently on the scene.
That's what they reckon. That's the accusation anyway. But
yeah,
I don't know. Isn't there one that doesn't stay in your system that long, so it's kind of hard to pick up?
Yeah, I'm freaking high as a kite on coke right now. So I've got a drug test tomorrow, so I think it's going to be out of my system by then.
Good man.
Yeah. Keep myself clear. Absolutely. No, I don't know. I don't know how long it stays in the blood system or anything like that. But yeah, who knows? Who knows? Yeah. But anyway, it felt like a very South African game and a very Argentinian game at the same time. I don't know. Your standout performers from the Argentinian side, who would you have to pick?
I mean, like, I honestly thought their bench did amazingly well. The props came on and gave the Springbok scrum some troubles, which was pretty pleasing. I like that man Juan Martin Gonzalez. He's a very athletic chap, and I think he gets about the puck really well. He just runs hard all day long. Like, I have always respect for the guys who you just always see them like running, even when nothing comes of it, so it doesn't become like a highlight reel moment. Like, there's one where Boffelli kicks loose ball through, and like Khaleesi chases back and taps it on him or Creel. But like, Gonzalez was the first Argentinian guy arriving. He's their loose forward. Yeah. Like, he was just like going to run hard just in case. Because sometimes there's that 1 in 100 time when the guy will miss it and you'll get an opportunity. So I love that about him.
Yeah, totally. And that's what you want from any player at any time. I think that's one of those things that coaches look for. Like, are they running hard for the ball, even when something's not on? Because when you are that guy who's trying to get there a yard and a half before anybody else, when the ball does, when something unexpected does happen, you're the man there to actually take advantage of it. So, he did really seem to be that sort of player. So, yeah, how old is he? Is he pretty young?
He's in his early 20s, I think. I want to say he's less than 25. So
good prospect, eh?
Yeah, he's still got a wee bit of a career about him. How about for you? Any South Africans or Argentinians that you thought, apart from Malcolm Marx?
No, for me, the main thing that I kept on just focusing on throughout that game was just the lack of cohesion, really, in the Argentinian squad. In that back line. I'd love to see, it's so frustrating. It must be so frustrating as a fan to be to see they're actually making opportunities. They're creating 3-on-2s or 2-on-1s quite often, but without being able just to get that last pass to click. And it's so close to being there. If they can get that really simple but really crucial part of the game right, I think there's still a lot of improvement left in that squad. So I don't think you should be absolutely throwing the baby out with the bathwater and being devastated by if you're an Argentinian fan, but I still, it must be absolutely maddening as a fan, to be fair.
Can you see them going to Durban this week and getting a win, just to throw a spanner in the works?
Yes, I can. The reason I say yes, it's probably not going to happen, but can I see it? Yes. Just the very nature of the Rugby Championship this year. All the games have just been up and down, these massive swings and roundabouts. Like the two games, obviously the South African one was far more dominant, but 20 minutes to go, the game was still completely all there to play for, and there was massive swings and momentum. So I think in this Rugby Championship, all bets are off. Anything can happen at this stage. So, and the fact that the South Africans may be tempted to play something that's not natural to their own style, like just play a little bit more expansive, just with the bonus point and the points differential in mind, that could potentially be to the benefit of the Argentinians. So, I can see it happening. Hopefully, it's going to be a cracker of a game.
I can't remember actually. I'm assuming the New Zealand game is first. I can't actually remember the fixtures list. It's usually first, just because of the time zones. But the South Africans, they should know what their job is, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the South Africans will be really, really hoping that the Australians get up, obviously.
Ideally for them, but otherwise, if not, then they need it to be close.
Yeah, and that
the All Blacks have already got a 20-point.
Yeah,
margin,
that 50-point win that they got against the Argentinians is proving to be pretty crucial. So if the New Zealanders can continue that incredible winning record at Eden Park since 1994, it's going to be that'll be the exciting thing. The equation will be there for everyone to see. They'll be like, okay, they need a bonus point and they need to win by freaking 32 points, something like that. It could be something like that.
Well, I guess we better talk about Australia and New Zealand, because that game, I figure that there's two kind of key incidents in that game we can save for the end. But the game itself was, if you take all the controversy aside, it wasn't like a perfect game of rugby. It was pretty entertaining. I love back and forward, lead changes, final 10 minutes, edge of your seat.
I've only just watched it again because the first time I watched it, I was at a work event in the Hokianga of all places, and I was basically just buying clients lots and lots of alcohol, essentially. And I was trying to watch the rugby, chatting to clients about different stuff. But I was thinking about it yesterday. I was like, do I need to watch this before the podcast? I was like, couldn't really it was so patchy, my memory of the game. I can remember the big event at the end, which I'm sure we're about to talk about, but actually just watching it in the last 24 hours, it really had shades of that 2000 game at Sydney at Olympic Stadium, where the All Blacks got off to like a 20-point win within a 20-point lead within 10 minutes, and then the Wallabies just came storming back into it. I love those sort of games, and these two sides seem to do that to each other with these massive swings and roundabouts. And there was a point in that game in the second half where we were up 31-13 or something like that. Was that right? 31-30, something like that. And I thought, and there's a little bit of sympathy for me from going to Australia. I never thought I'd say that, but I thought for whatever reason, the All Blacks just saved their best performances for Australia. I was like, those poor buggers. And then I just continued and then it was time for shots. And it was all on from there, basically, at the bar. And then before I knew it, I was like, holy crap, we're going to lose this. So, but it was an amazing fight back. Callaway played incredibly well. Foley, we're going to talk about what he did. He got absolutely skinned by Mo'unga for Mo'unga's try, but he actually played bloody well. He did that little forward pass to Callaway for that other try as well, which was pretty sweet. Which they didn't check, that was a little bit of a controversial moment as well, actually. They took the kick before they could even check it. Fair play to them. But no, just a classic Bledisloe Cup game. Really, really classic. And it's just a shame that we're talking more about the referee than we are about the actual game itself, because it should be one of those games that goes down in the annals as a classic, but it's going to go down in the annals as one of the most controversial calls of all time, unfortunately. What were you?
Luckily for Ian Foster, like nobody's talking about the fact that, bro, you had this game in an absolutely winning position. Your team could potentially storm ahead and, potentially almost claim the Rugby Championship by going to get this bonus point win. And you almost lose the thing. Like nobody's really talking about that because it's all focused on the referee.
Oh, imagine, like he'd be so under the pump if that call didn't get made right now. And for me, like, they were absolutely just play after play in that last 20 minutes. They were just absolutely peeling us and skinning us out wide. Like our defensive structures, I know Geordie came into second five, and I'm not sure if that had much to do with it, but we were just getting absolutely routed on the edges for that period.
Jordan falling off tackles and like guys out of position. It was all a bit sixes and sevens, wasn't it?
Will Jordan fell off Pete Samu, yeah?
Oh, and multiple others. I think he missed 5 all up.
I was trying to watch him because I know people were giving him a bit of grief. He did make some good tackles out there as well.
Yeah, I think his stats have got him making 8, missing 5.
Yeah, right. Yeah, missing 5 tackles, that's not good.
That's a lot for one game.
But that try that he scored with Bodie's chip over, that was chef's kiss. A real peach. That's an ass puckerer. Like when I watched that, my asshole puckered. Went, oh.
Yeah. A lot of those guys had that kind of performance. Like you mentioned Callaway. I think I said it I did a team of the week yesterday. Like Callaway scored a couple of beauties. He blew one where it's just like, for God's sake, man, pass the ball. Rico puts in a great try saver. Like you said, he got skinned by Will Jordan.
Did he really put in a good try saver? That try, I've never seen somebody hold themselves up. And that's essentially what he did. Like, because I watched it and they were talking, Rico, what a try. Rico just makes your standard tackle. He doesn't have his arm under the ball or anything like that. Obviously, Callaway goes out to do the big, the Superman to go down. But as he goes down, his arm hits the ground and then pushes in. And then the moment where the ball should be hitting the ground, his hand is under his leading hand is under the ball. He holds himself up.
Plus Rico.
Yeah, Rico. It's just Rico just made your kind of standard covering tackle.
Around there, I think.
Yeah, I think he did well. He did well to make that space because that should have been a try all day. But
either way, Callaway should finish that one all day long.
Yeah, I think he must have assumed he scored it because it's like how could he not? Like. Anyway, yeah, that was a big moment. But then I've seen people saying, "Oh, what would have been if he scored it?" But then what was it? Valentini scored very, very quickly after, didn't he?
Yeah, it's one of those ones where you can't really look back at it and go, "Well, what if we'd scored it? What would have happened?" Because then everything else down the line changes, right? So,
I was a little bit perplexed when I saw the team sheet originally that Mick Wright wasn't playing, wasn't starting. But I actually thought for those first 15 minutes, I know that when they came back to 10-all and all that sort of thing, that loose trio of Valentini, Fullertown, and Pete Samu looked really dynamic. Big men, big ball carriers, and I want to say, am I getting the name right? The Fullertown?
I think this guy you're thinking of, the big six.
Leota. Yeah, sorry, not Fullertown. Leota. who unfortunately got a terrible injury in that game. He was actually looking really, really good for the period that he came on, and then he got quickly replaced by Thug of all thugs. What a prick. Absolute dipshizer. Oh, look, really, really unimpressed by what this bloke did. Darcy Swaine, when he's not pulling hairs, he's breaking knees. Like, that was some thugger shit.
Yeah, man, that's like, we see a lot of cards in rugby these days, but I feel like 90+% of them is just guys getting the technique wrong. And like the commentators always talk about, well, there's no intent there, and it doesn't really matter. But this is one where like the intent was absolutely there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, you know, I actually listened to Rennie afterwards, and he said that he was just cleaning out of a ruck and got it slightly wrong. You know, and
I don't buy it.
I guess, like, let's play devil's advocate. I'll play devil's advocate for him. You know, he's just looking to clean out a ruck. You're basically looking for any part of the body that you can kind of get leverage on. But the angle, I've just talked myself out of it immediately. The angle that he goes in, the fact he wraps his arm around that person's knee and pushes in, it's some straight thuggery.
Man. There's no way that's, I mean, like, it's interesting, like, the way controversial decisions generally work in rugby is that two people will see the exact same incident, like the one we're about to talk about with the Foley and the referee thing, and people can have totally different views on it. Whereas I feel like the majority of people are like, that guy's a piece of shit who went to try and injure that guy.
Yeah.
Like, very few people are arguing that, no, that was a legit attempt to clean out. And sadly, he's got a bit of a record for it. Like, I don't mind guys who kind of have the enforcer role. They be the tough guy. Like, he got sent off for like a headbutt in the England series, but it wasn't like a full-on headbutt. It was more one of those ones with
he was getting his hair pulled by Johnny Hill, wasn't it? Yeah,
so it was one of those ones. But yeah, I don't mind that. But this, like, you could end a guy's career, man. Like, that's not right.
He's quickly turning into the Australian version of Lavanini, basically. Lavanini's a shocker at that sort of crap.
Lavanini's at least cleaned his act up. I'm getting back the the respect factor for that man. But yeah,
you're the leader of the Lavanini fan club, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. I picked him in my team of the week multiple weeks at the start of the competition.
Oh wow!
I'm loving Big Thomas Lavanini when he's playing clean. Like, I don't mind playing hard, but you can't be doing that, man. That's nah.
Yeah, but overall, there was a lot of carnage in that game. Obviously, Tupai, I keep wanting to say
David Harvey goes off. Sam Kane goes off. Rob Leota goes off. Like, there's a big injury ward from that game.
Slipper went off as well. Yeah, it's gonna, and just on the All Black side of things, you know, is this RTS's shot now that they lost it to?
I was going to ask you, actually. Yeah, the All Blacks midfield is looking rather depleted with, you know, we've got no ALB, we've got no Goodhue, and now we lose Tupai and Havili in one game.
This finally could be the moment for RTS.
I reckon it'll be Geordie Barrett.
Probably. Poor bugger. Like, but you reckon they've got to have him on the bench then at least.
Surely you got to bring him into the squad at least, right? He's been playing in the NPC, so he's been
looking all right. Have you watched him in the NPC?
Yeah. He's been looking decent, man. So every game he's looking a bit better.
I'm worried about his ear. Did you see his ear in the game? He played Tasman on the weekend, and
no, I didn't see the Tasman game.
He had blood streaming out his ear, and they wrapped it up, and it looked like he had perforated an eardrum. Like, there was so much blood there. Like, there's been nothing come out in the media or anything like that. But if there is, you heard it here first. Like, it looked dodgy.
Okay.
Looked dodgy. Speaking of the NPC, just quickly, Wellington.
Take the shield.
Stick that up, you magpie butts. Anyway, for those of you who don't watch the NPC, which I guarantee, which is probably 98% of your viewers, wouldn't they?
Probably.
98%. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, that's exciting. But you reckon it's going to be Geordie?
I reckon if I had to put money on it, like, I mean, the Springboks, just to touch back on that one with their number 10 crisis, they haven't called anyone else up, so it'll probably be Frans Steyn because he came off the bench and filled in there. And then for the All Black side, I reckon they go with Geordie and potentially call up. Or is Enor still in the squad? He could jump on the bench as well, I guess, potentially.
Who are they going to put at fullback? They put Bodie at fullback then?
Either Bodie or Will Jordan. I'd love to see Will Jordan get a game at fullback, to be honest.
Yeah, so would I. And you know what I was thinking about as well? Like, I don't think RTS has got the kicking game for it, but my God, he's made a career at being one of the best in the NRL under the high ball, like a freak under the high ball. So it'd be interesting to see if they could utilize him back there at any stage and attacking from the back as well. He was absolutely freakish during his career in the NRL. So I don't know if that's in the back of anyone's minds or anything like that, because I'd love to see him attack from the back, because that's what his bread and butter was in the NRL.
Yeah. Well, you can set up your team to kind of accommodate for that kind of weakness. Like Israel Folau never had a very good kicking game, so they would kind of, shift him around so he wouldn't have to kick if he didn't have to. You know what I mean? Like occasionally he did, but you can see why he didn't make it in the AFL with his boot. But
old Sparkles, there he is. Yeah. Got a bit of grief about that one. I did.
You did.
Yeah. Well, bring it.
Now we can't not talk about it, man. The call, Matthew Raynell.
That forward pass, I know. The fact that he didn't call.
It seems to be pretty much a divided black and white thing of.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about the forward pass for the Callaway try.
Oh, you want to talk about the forward pass?
No. That was just.
It's really going black and white, where it's like either the ref is an absolute shithead who basically, as some form of conspiracy, has gifted the All Blacks the game, or if not quite to that level, at least he's a bit egotistical and making it all about himself, or Bernard Foley is just a time-wasting idiot who got busted and it serves him right.
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, a little bit of column C, a little bit of column D. I think there. I think there was I keep switching my view on this. I can't. Like, if I was an Australian, I've got to be honest, I'd be steamed. I'd be like, I've never seen that call before. To make that call in such a huge moment that you never see speaks more to the French ego. The other thing I've never seen in a game of rugby is I've never seen players around a kicker going, kick the ball, you've kick it. Like they must have got a feel on the ground that he had taken the piss to the nth degree and that there was a infringement impending. Like if a player for the entire backline basically be yelling at him to kick the dang ball. And I know that there's been a lot of things coming out on social media where they're just playing it without the commentary and they're just playing it. And he does. He says kick, now play, and then he stops the ball. He says, okay, I've just stopped it. I'm going to start again now. But if you need to kick now, and he doesn't. So does he take the piss to the point where he just crossed the line? Yeah, probably. Should the referee really have made that call in like the 78th minute of a game? Probably not. Like, I wouldn't. I'd like to see calls like that made when it's not such a big thing. But I think potentially the reason why he was taking so much time was he knew that they were going to have to kill a few phases. So the more time you take there, the less phases you're going to have to kill. And the more likely you're going to actually have to win that game. But it all came down to that moment because, the game wasn't won at that stage by the Wallabies. There's a decent enough chance as there is in any line out that they don't get the line out, that the All Blacks manage to get a turnover there. And then we get, a frantic 60 seconds or however long it goes in the phases. But for it all just to come down to Raynell's call and for it to be the major talking point is a bit of a shame. I would be absolutely steamed if I was in Australia. Foley really did screw the pooch as well. At the same time, he really needed to kick that ball just purely on the evidence that the players around him were also screaming at him. They got a feel for it. So it was just a real shame in a lot of different ways. And I think probably if I had to I feel like I'm just talking around the issue. I keep just thinking about it as an Australian, which I'm not.
Right.
It was a real shame. I don't know. What were your feelings around it? Right call or wrong call?
I do feel like, every ref has their own way of managing the game. And I went back to have a look at some of the earlier times when he was hurrying up Bernard Foley. And he basically just uses one phrase, which is "we play," like we play, play. Which I mean, yeah, if you've got your wits about you and you're a veteran rugby player, professional, you should know that you're being hurried up. But also, I feel like the best refs, maybe not the best refs, but there's a way to manage the game where you keep that. Like, it shouldn't come as a surprise. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe like you said, half the back line knew what was coming. So maybe it can be seen as, no, this is not a surprise. If you didn't see this coming, you're a fool. But all this is, like in like 30 odd minutes or whatever, when he's giving him that first warning for wasting time, in one of the many stoppages, it's a, Bernard, you're taking the piss with these kicks.
Yeah.
I need you to be faster. If you're not, I'm going to free kick you. Because this is not a call that, like you said, ever gets made. No. If you're going to make a call, it'd be like if a scrum half got pinged in the same situation for not feeding the scrum straight. You'd be like, holy shit, the ref was actually watching that. Like, if you saw it in like 20 minutes and the scrum half fed it as crooked as a dog's hind leg, and the ref said to him, mate, if I see you doing it that badly again, or if I see you doing that again, I'm going to free kick you, then the warning is there. You know what I mean? I feel like there needs to be that flow, and good referees and good captains do it as well, right? If they feel like there's something they're not happy with, they'll bring it up to the ref in one of the many, time off, or like, walking to a line out, or, waiting for something, water break, whatever it is. I feel like there needs to be that extra level of communications. I don't think it should come as a surprise. And it seems like Raynell, after the game, kind of said to Nick White, I haven't actually seen it, I've only seen the transcript of it, but like Nick White's giving him a hard time. Yeah. And he says something like, well, you didn't think I would call a scrum, did you? That like hints a little bit to the ego. Like, seriously, I think if you're going to award that thing which never gets awarded, a little bit of management leading up to it, I think is, I don't know, it should be there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the key indicators of a great referee is that ability to communicate, to be able to put those sort of safety barriers in place before that big call is actually made, going, hey, beautiful.
Refs do it all the time, right? Like sometimes someone's slowing the ball down and they'll have that conversation like hands away 7, and then the next time there's a stoppage, they'll say, if you keep doing that, I'm going to ping you, or like they'll speak to the captain, guys, make sure you guys are staying on side when you're kicking up, make sure your wingers are staying on side because, they're getting close. Like just that kind of game management, which is ongoing throughout the game. Yeah. I think helps. I'm not saying that like absolves Foley from any responsibility, because as you said clearly, half the back line knew what was up. The forwards were doing their huddle, so he seemed to be looking at them. But I don't think either party walks away from this looking rosy, personally.
No, they don't. And it's just, as I said before, it's just a real shame because it was such a cracking game, a really, really good game of rugby that was. That's going to be the moment that everybody talks about. They're not going to talk about the massive comeback from the Wallabies. They're not going to talk about the electric tries from, Will Jordan. That try for that chip over the top, that was the way he caught that.
Will Jordan 1-2 with Corin Beatty, like that was a crack. And then the conversion from the sideline.
Foley played really well in that game, especially considering he hadn't played in 3 years for the Wallabies. I thought he was quite remarkable. What the hell is going on with Nick White's legs, by the way?
He's always been a bit bow-legged.
I never really noticed it to that extent. My God. Looks like he's trying to, I don't know, at some point, like he, shat out like a ostrich egg or something. And his
Liam Williams from Wales is a bit like that. I don't know. It must be a medical thing. I guess some people you're offending everyone who's bow-legged now.
I apologize to my bow-legged friends out there. My apologies.
Next time someone's picking up a contact lens off the ground and you're giving them shit about it, me as the four-eyed community, I'm going to get very mad at you.
Do people give you grief about your glasses? I don't think so. That's not really a thing. I think in the old days when people had glasses and they were freaking Coke bottles that you used to have on your face, people would get grief about having glasses. Now they're a fashion accessory more than anything else, aren't they?
Some people wear them with just like plain, not even prescription lenses, just like glass, just because they want to wear glasses. Or no,
makes them look intelligent.
Yeah, basically.
Makes them look intelligent. Maybe I should. I need anything to make me look intelligent, because right now I look like I'm stoned as a mother. Really, don't I?
That's the COVID effect, hey?
That's the COVID effect.
So is this decision, if the Aussies, because apparently they're going to lodge a complaint about it, they're obviously feeling pretty hard done by.
Why? Well, you can't. I thought that was silly. I was like, you're gonna lodge a complaint about a referee following the. It's tough, and maybe not in the spirit of the game for that moment. But what, you're lodging a complaint against the rules of rugby? Like when you're playing a game of rugby, I thought that was a bit silly. Like, sure, you feel miffed and feel hard done by, but I don't think World Rugby's got a really, really good rebuttal to that. Going, oh, that's the rules. What are you going to do? You know, it had a bit of a man-cat feel to it. Do you know what a man-cat is?
No.
So in cricket, when somebody
where you hit the thing back after you bowled the ball, yes.
Yeah. Which is technically you can do it, but it's against the spirit of the game. So I think you had a bit of that.
Usually will give one warning, right?
Yeah. Well, they give a heaps of it's a massive hoopla if somebody actually gets a man cat and they appeal and they give it out. It happens once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
But that's actually more on the players to be managed. That's as if the All Blacks went to the referee and said, no, let's not get the infringement there. That's against the spirit of the game. So which is not going to happen.
Never going to happen. I mean, I guess one thing we should add is that, like you said, like the game wouldn't have been guaranteed to be won if Foley had been allowed to complete his kick for touch. The game was also not necessarily lost at that 5 meter scrub.
They had an opportunity to keep them out.
They had an opportunity to stop them, but they didn't. So
no, they didn't.
I mean, obviously, it was a golden opportunity, but still, it wasn't.
And that last pass on
Will Jordan game, and he gives a penalty literally in front of the post. You know what I mean?
100%. And Will Jordan did bloody well there as well. Like, I know everyone's giving him grief, but he steps the man and then also draws the last defender and gets the ball out to Geordie there.
That's right.
And I think people are being a bit harsh on old Will McJordan pants.
It's one of those games where you do some stuff which is fantastic, and then you got some mistakes. Nobody's game is perfect unless you're Malcolm Marks, I guess. Even he got pinged at scrum time. So But I was going to say, does this adversity fire the Aussies up for a famous win at Eden Park, first time in goodness knows how many years, since the 80s?
I think it's your best chance to get the All Blacks at Eden Park. I think, and that's what they've got to play for. They've got to play for the fact that this is history. Like the Rugby Championship's gone, the Bledisloe's gone for another year, but they've got this massive shot at history against an erratic All Black team and an All Black team that they know they can put points on. I think in terms of a one-off occasion, this could be pretty special. I think you've got to give them a good shout. But on the other hand, it's the All Blacks at Eden Park. It's maybe the biggest challenge in world rugby. The chances are that they win. I've got a ticket to that game.
Are you allowed to go with your COVID?
I'm out of isolation on Friday. Well, I got my positive test on Saturday, but I can. Oh, there we go. I got my positive test on Saturday, but I had symptoms on Thursday and Friday. So I think technically I'm going to play it by ear. I'm not 100% sure on what I'm going to do.
See how you're feeling, I guess.
Yeah. If I'm sick, I won't go.
Yeah.
Little ASMR going on here. I'm pouring water. Can you hear that?
I can.
I hope the listeners enjoyed that. I hope they did. Yeah, but anyway.
Favourites, you'd still have to say, for the Rugby Championship with one game to go?
It's hard to say they're not favourites, Eden Park. Even if they were on a losing record, you'd have to say they're still favourites, Eden Park. You know, the one game we played against the Irish, that was the only game that we looked dominant in.
That's true. Even then, it was only dominant for 15 minutes, though. But anyway, I mean, I guess if the All Blacks lose that Melbourne game, that maybe fires them up for Eden Park. Is there a potential chance that the All Blacks, having the highs of that Melbourne game, are going into it a bit underdone? I don't know.
Potentially that they had this massive adrenaline dump when they got across the line. They only really looked good for a couple of periods in that game, the start of the first half and the start of the second half. They did that All Black thing where they just looked like the world's best team for 15 minutes and put on, a
lot of points. I think when the Aussies had cards, at least one, the Taukei'aho second was when they had a card. I feel like we scored. I'll have to go back and check the timings, but I feel like we scored when they had guys in the bin. So
honestly, that game didn't make me feel any better about Foster. Imagine the heat he'd be taking if Reynard, did what 99.9% of other referees did and just said, kick the ball, and just waited for him to kick the ball. And they, in all likelihood, take it into a ruck, do a couple of one-off runs off the ruck, and they kick it out and, get a famous victory. Oh, the chat would be intense again, but it's not. And nobody's talking about Ian Foster and the fact.
Well, they are talking about him a little bit because in the press conference he was just like, "Yep, ref was clear as crystal clear." He told him to hurry up. He was wasting time, basically.
Yeah. Well,
then they asked Sam Whitelock about it. Sam, have you ever seen that? And he's just kind of like, "No, I have never seen that happen before."
Yeah. I felt like that just invalidated him a little bit. Not as Sam Whitelock, but Fozzie. But then on the other hand, Dave Rennie saying that Darcy Swaine's clean out was just
accidental. Yeah, they're both a bit disingenuous, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of former Chiefs coaches talking out their asses, basically.
Right.
I blame the Waikato.
Definitely. Still that cowbell.
When in doubt, blame Hamilton. That's what I say.
That's what New Zealanders tend to do. I thought about moving there for a while, but then didn't.
Why would have you moved to Hamilton?
Because the house prices.
Were you just interested in getting chlamydia? Something like that.
House prices.
Not chlamydia. Just for those outside New Zealand, Hamilton is the STD capital of New Zealand.
Is it still? I feel like it was replaced by somewhere else in the North Island.
Oh, really?
Like maybe Napier? I don't know.
Speaking of places in the North Island, I was in Hokianga to watch that game. You know where Hokianga? 4 hours north of Auckland. It's right up there. Right up. Beautiful. Just stunning. Gorgeous. The
North's always pretty nice.
Yeah, the North is weird. You drive through these towns that are stuck in 1982, but then you go to some abject poverty around there, but then you go to these incredibly beautiful spots at the same time. It's a weird place.
Any video rental stores up there?
Like a United Video type thing.
Yeah.
Didn't spot any, but it's a good question. Good question. You reckon there's still
well, I just remember it was a couple of years ago now. It would have been 2 years ago, maybe 1 year. Yeah, the 2020, I think I was driving through. When was our first big lockdown? Was it 2021 or 20? No, it was 2020, wasn't it?
2020, yeah.
Yeah, first big lockdown. I was in the South Island on holiday, and then Jacinda said there's a lockdown, so I had to make a beeline for any flight that I could get, and it ended up being my missus ended up leaving from Invercargill, and I ended up leaving from Dunedin because we couldn't get tickets on the same flight. So I drove through Gore, and Gore still had either United Video or a Blockbuster, and I was like, I haven't seen one of those in a while.
How about that, eh? How about that? Gore, fun fact about Gore, the homosexual capital of New Zealand. Gore.
Gay man's Gore. I'm pretty sure that's a quote from that episode of whatever it was.
It was from Havigan Newsboy, and then they said that, and then they got
so much hate mail.
They got so much hate mail they weren't allowed more hate than I usually get in my comment section. They weren't allowed back in the town just for saying, because they were just going through no-name towns in New Zealand trying to come up with silly things to say about them, and they just said homosexual capital of New Zealand.
I'm pretty sure gay man score is a word-for-word quote from that episode. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Look it up on YouTube, somebody.
Yes, we have to have a look. Did you watch any other rugby at the weekend?
I did. I watched one. I watched a little bit of NPC. I watched the Ranfurly Shield game. If there's a Shield game on, I try and catch that. And that was actually really, really exciting to watch. Hawke's Bay versus Wellington. Yeah. Wellington almost really screwed the pooch at the end of the game. They had a chance to go to a 10-point lead. They had a kick right in front. The young replacement number 10 shanked it from right in front, which you don't see. And then it was all to play for at the end, and they managed to hold them out on their line. It was very dramatic, very exciting. But our listeners probably didn't watch that. But I did watch Harlequins versus Saracens, and I watched
some Northern Hemisphere club rugby.
I did, mate. There's 2 weekends in a row because I said, we're doing this podcast. I want to get more familiar with it. Harlequins are meant to be my team in the Premiership, and I did very much enjoy watching them. And I felt really good about watching that game because I watched the week before. I watched the Leicester Tigers versus the Wasps. Was it the Wasps? Exeter, sorry.
And that one was, I watched that as well. That game was setting all kinds of records for kicks from hand. It was 100+.
Oh my God, I wanted to shoot myself in the face watching that game. Like, I know that probably if you put rugby into an algorithm and they said appropriate times to kick, they would probably say kick it at all times when you're not in the opponent's 22. Like, maybe the algorithm would say that. But and that's how the Leicester were playing it. They were just kicking and it was like professional force back, and it was just so boring. I know probably technically it was the right thing to do, but God, it was. I don't want
a close finish, which was the kind of saving grace.
Finish, but geez, the other exciting thing about what that game was the fact that what the hell, Jimmy Goppeth is still playing. Like, how he's our age? He's actually our age. And you know what was interesting though? It was during that weekend where they were like, "Do we play during the weekend after the Queen had just passed away?" But it was the second time Jimmy Goppeth has actually been in that situation, because he is actually playing in the weekend when the King passed away 70 years ago. So, like him having to go through that again, that's
tough on him. Very tough. That was a weird one because, like, the organisers of that competition, I think, were under a bit of pressure to postpone some games. But, like, some of them they postponed by, like, a day.
Yeah.
I don't really get the point. I would have thought you can the games, or you go ahead and do the moment silence and do the tribute and whatnot. But going back one day, I don't really see what purpose that serves other than to just disrupt everyone's plans. I know it's like, well, this is a once in every 70-year thing, but I just feel like pick that one or that one, but down the middle didn't seem to suit anybody. Imagine all the staff that have to work at that game, or people who'd made plans. I don't know. Like I said, it's a once in a generation thing, but still.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, I think when you're in, like, I was in the UK for the golden and the silver jubilees, and the royal family and all that sort of thing is just ginormous over there, and you can feel how important it is to the people. But the reason it's so important to the people is because on those jubilees, I'd go to all these fetes and stuff, but it brings all the people together, and like people celebrate together under like a common cause. And the Queen just happens to be the head of it. And I think sport does the same thing, though. It brings people together. And I felt like it was actually really nice to see that game actually being played. But by God, it was boring. But the reason it was, it was really enjoyable to watch the Quins versus Saracens that was not boring. And
I've seen the first half so far. I need to finish it off today, but it seems pretty mental.
Oh, it was amazing. And I was really worried. Like, I was like, because in New Zealand, we have these preconceived notions of Northern Hemisphere rugby that it's really boring.
And then you watch that first game, which is like the one that's 100+ kicks.
Oh, yeah. I watched that first one. I was like, oh, God, I'd rather be watching bloody Massey take on North Harbour Marist right now, because it would be more, like, that's lower than NPC level for anybody out there. Like, because it was just so, and I was like, oh, what am I getting myself into? I'm going to have to watch endless amounts of these absolute kickathons. Somebody shoot me in the nuts right now. So then I was like, this weekend I was begrudgingly watching, the Harlequins versus Saracens. I was like, oh, geez, here we go again.
Saracens a bit of a risky one as well, because they are also known to be partial to a wee kickathon.
But it was a hell of a game. It was a hell of a game. It was a great game. The Quins got off to an absolute fly, got 17 points on the board immediately, played in beautiful sunshine, which was great to see. We're just coming out of our winter now, so just to see a bit of sun on the back, some people enjoying it and all that sort of thing was great. And they played for the conditions. They played some really great running rugby. The Harlequins, I think Saracens were coming off the bye in the first week, which I always think is a pretty big disadvantage to get the bye in the first week. And they had a bit of rust to start with, and were just caught on the hop. Just didn't have their heads in the game, and Saracens were able to Quins were really able to make the most out of that. But there's so much class in that Saracens team, man. Like Itoje, that's, if someone said to me, describe Itoje as a player, I couldn't describe him. I just have to make that noise. He's such a freak. He's just an absolute tank of a defender out there.
He's
amazing
there,
at the breakdown, dominant in the line out. Just an absolute. I remember watching him in that semi-final against against New Zealand back in 2019, going, this guy's the best player in the world. And I've said that about 3 players in this one podcast already today. But he's world class.
He's a freak of an athlete, that's for sure.
Yeah, really is. And Farrell was in that team, and there's a lot of other class players. Billy Funapola, boy, oh boy, he's a unit. He's a big unit, and he's a really good player with ball in hand as well.
And Don Brandt for the Quins guys, they're number 8. He's also a pretty useful guy. Those guys are kind of head to head for kind of England contention.
Yeah,
going into the World Cup.
And I really enjoyed the way the Quins play the game. They really just didn't. Once the Saracens got on top, they really kind of failed to throw a punch at the end. They had one penalty at the end that could have potentially swung the game, but they just couldn't win the line out off that. And it was a bit of a shame to see them limp out of the game. But overall, a really high quality game of rugby, and restored my faith in Northern Hemisphere rugby. Which was good.
Nice. Yeah, I've seen half of that one. I watched a bit of the old URC, which is the broadcast arrangement for that competition here sucks because half of it's on Spark and the other half is on the URC's own in-house streaming platform. So it's not on Sky, which has all the games. So I'm taking you watched the Premiership on Sky?
I watched it on Sky, but then I was looking for the UR because I do have Spark Sports. So you're going to have to let me know where to go. I know you do a pretty good job of that on your channel. You actually let people know. Go to Flow Rugby, everybody. But
that's where I watch the URC because you can. I'm VPNing onto the old Flow Rugby, but I watched a couple of those games because the broadcast arrangement here is just unfortunate. But Cardiff. I'm trying to think who's like the New Zealand equivalent of Cardiff. But basically, do you remember like a couple of years ago when the Aussie teams were just absolute dog shite in Super Rugby and just couldn't beat the New Zealand teams?
Yeah.
Cardiff's obviously a Welsh team, and then they played Munster, one of the Irish teams, your Irish team, and they managed to get a win. It's basically like the Aussie teams from that time beating one of the Kiwi teams because they were at home though. But they had Tulipe Faletau. He's a new signing for them. We're Welsh and British and Irish Lion. He played like a freak. So I mean, Munster were without a fair few of their big guns, but like you said, beautiful day in Cardiff. They had a good crowd because like the Welsh teams have been struggling for performances. Like none of their teams made the knockout stages of the URC last season. They really struggled, but they had a good crowd and they were treated to some good rugby. So that was pretty pleasing. But the opening game of the URC, which was on, I think, Friday in Italy, was Benetton against Glasgow, which is just such a weird opener because Benetton, as one of the 2 Italian teams, they always get like a crowd, like an NPC level crowd. Like it's always a couple of thousand diehard fans because it's just not a big game over there. And it just seems like such a weird way to open the competition. Like I would have thought a big, a rivalry game. But I guess because some of the players are still on rest from like international duties, so they don't want like the Leinster, Munster kind of things going early. But it was just such a weird. I mean, it was a fun game to watch, but there was only a couple of thousand people there.
It doesn't seem like much of a break from the July internationals for your top line players, does it?
Yeah, it's pretty grueling up there. But like I said, I think like Munster had a bunch of their international guys either injured or resting. So I guess the teams manage them in their own ways. But
absolutely. Hey, international rugby. We just had a conversation about Northern Hemisphere rugby, and I kept up, sort of.
There you go. Happy days.
Yes.
Happy days. You'll be able to see the South African teams on Spark Sport for the URC.
The Bulls played in the weekend, didn't they? And I
missed the Bulls played the Lions. I haven't seen the game, but I know the Bulls got a pretty decent win. I think Marcel Coetzee scored a nice try or something like that. So,
All right, fantastic. Hey, look, thank you for doing this today and having to do it remotely. This isn't ideal for us. We feel like it's better when we're in person. It's nice to actually get together and actually have a beer. But today we had a couple of teas. There's the old gents that we are,
Yes.
And after this, I'm going to go sleep for another 12 hours.
You've got some COVID recovery to do.
I do have some COVID recovery.
Hopefully next week we'll know the winner of the Rugby Championship and we can sit down and have a chat about that.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll have watched some more rugby that's been going on because that's just tends to be what we do with our weekends, huh?
Yeah, that's it, buddy. That's it. Rugby, the great game. The game that takes up our time and deteriorates our relationships.
It's done nothing for trans-Tasman relations, that's for sure.
No, that's right. That's right. Oh dear. Okay, quickly before we go, tell me your winners for the weekend.
I'm going to go with both the home sides. I can't see. I mean, like you said, I can see either of the away sides, the Aussies or the Pumas, getting a win. But I mean, we're talking, pretty long odds. So yeah, I would say both the home sides to get wins. There's been a few times when the Aussies have kind of had their tails up after a good performance in Australia, and then they come to Eden Park and just gotten flogged. I think it was the game after the time we lost at Perth when Scott Barrett got a red card. I went to the game the next week at Eden Park, and we absolutely flogged them. So
yeah,
that might happen. But like we talked about, there's a small possibility the All Blacks have got like a wee hangover from from that last minute win where they're not quite up for it, and the Aussies with their tails up. But realistically, if I'm putting money on it, it's going to be both the home sides.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you'd be a very brave man not to back the All Blacks in that game. But for whatever reason, it seems to have all the ingredients for the Wallabies to be the ones with real intent going to the game.
I hope it's a cracker. I do not want either of those games to be, like that Hamilton game against the Pumas. I don't want it to be like that. I want it to be an arm wrestle where, like the South African game at the last minute, we're trying to find out whether they're going to win the Rugby Championship or something like that. That's what I mean. As an ad for the competition, I think this year's one's been a pretty good ad. And we've had enough in terms of upsets and comebacks and whatnot that it's been a pretty good ad, because it's been a competition over the years which can be a little bit kind of samey. But no, this year's been.
I can't think of a single game that's just been a complete dunger, this year. Like, I know we won by 50 points. That was the only game where it felt like, okay, it was a foregone conclusion going into the, like with 30 minutes to go, you knew exactly who was going to win that game.
Yeah.
But every other game, it's been all there to play for, and still with 10 minutes to go, not knowing which way it's going to go, which is what you want, especially as it's been the most exciting year to watch games that the All Blacks haven't been involved in. Like sometimes it's very easy as a neutral just to go, I'll see the results, but you actually want to watch them because they're bloody entertaining. So it's been great.
No, it's good for the competition.
All right, champ. Fantastic. All right, we'll say goodbye to the people. You're the host.
See you, people. And you, Tony, take care of yourself, man.
I will. Let us know what you think in the comments. Go subscribe to 2 Cents Rugby.
And it's on Spotify and...
Oh, yes.
Tell them right at the end.
Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
Google Podcasts.
Leave
iHeartRadio.
And leave a rating if you can. And go subscribe to me too, you sacks. I'm sorry I called you sacks. I love you. All right. See ya.
See you, team.